I don't believe in abundance for the sake of it. I believe in safety. Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video we're gonna do some troubleshooting for those spells that don't seem to work. Why don't they work? I think I figured out something that works for me, so maybe it can work for you too. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi. And if you like my work, you can support me directly there with a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or you can even get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5. But the number of tarot readings are limited to just a few per month now, so if you don't find any available, don't worry, come back on the first of the next month and there will be new ones available. So if you decide to support me there, thank you so very much. I've been wanting to do this video for like a year. I was having a chat with my amazing friend, Sofia Righetti. Go check her out. She publishes her podcast there. It is in Italian, but you can have automatic caption that translate in English. She's amazing. She's an amazing witch. She's an amazing disability rights activist. She's an amazing intersectional feminist. Go check her out. What are you still doing here? That being said, we were talking about it, I think 6 months ago now. And I have gone through trial and error myself. I started to practice like proper witchcraft with the idea of this is witchcraft in September of 2022, and I've tried my hand at a lot of spells because I think you have to go through trial and error. Something that I personally was obsessed at the beginning was to have a structure, and so let me read books to understand how others structure spells. Do I need a circle? How do I cast a circle? What's a circle? It's all that stuff. In hindsight, with the stuff that I have read since, trial and error, get Ari, the Oak Witch book, Spellcraft and Spellwork. It tells you everything you need to know to start making your own spells. I very rarely use a spell that already exists nowadays. I always make up my own. And what Ari's book does is basically explain to you what are the fundamental blocks of creating your spell. So identifying what your objective is, identifying what's the materials that you're going to use to offer to the universe in exchange for what you want back from the universe, how to focus your energy, how to raise energy. And I think the general mistake that as witches we do, let me know if it's not yours, like what else? But one mistake that I tended to do was to not spend enough attention, enough time, enough energy in visualizing the outcome. So let's take money spells, because I think everybody goes through them at some point. And the first money spells that I did were just literally about the idea I need to be in a safer economical position. And to me, the way to envision a safer economical position was the very plain way to see a higher number in my bank account. I think at some point, for some reason, my idea was, I want £700,000. What would I even do with that? Probably buy a house, that would be amazing. But then the rest I would just redistribute within my community. But anyway, that's my personal take on that. But yeah, of course, £700,000 never materialized. And I was reminded of that because I follow Servants of the Fates on Tumblr. They also have YouTube videos. I very much love specifically their Tumblr posts because they talk about a lot of the background of their own practice and the ideas, the superstitions, where she comes from, which sounds very similar to me, especially when it has to do with tarot, to the kind of rituals that I remember seeing cartomancers in Italy do when they were reading cards. Which I also realize people don't know, unless they have had a tarot reading with me in person, that there is a certain kind of rituals that I still apply when I do in-person readings, and I do them myself when I do a remote reading for someone, because they stuck with me having seen them so many times. So there's a thing about crossing arms or legs, there's a thing about with what hand to pick up the cards. I don't just pick like the last 3 or whatever card from the... It's all stuff that I saw for so long in Italy, and so I just apply, which is part of the Italian style reading. It's just what I do because I've seen it done. And I kind of understand why if I analyze, but I don't like to analyze these things. We do them because it's our tradition and we believe in it. Enlightenment, take that! But anyway, She recently made a post saying, this is the one thing that actually improved my spells so much. And what she talks about, it's literally the idea of the universe maybe doesn't like greedy people. And so the simple idea of a number means nothing to the universe. And if it means something, maybe you're just greedy. But if when you do a money or prosperity spell, what you envision as the objective is actually the way that you feel comfort. So is it sitting on a plush sofa with trays of delicious things around you, that kind of thing, not just the number going up. So what does comfort and richness and prosperity and money materializes as in your mind? Because that's always the thing about spells. We try to say things in the present tense as if they are already here. We try to visualize the outcome that we want as if it's already happening. We try to precipitate all the possibilities of the universe for that specific option to happen. Foolish Fish has a very interesting video on quantum precipitation of probability. It's interesting. Give it a look. I'll link it down in the description below. But yes, that's the reason why the first few money spells that I did didn't change much. If anything, I had a lot of trouble at the time for external reasons. It was a tower year, so, you know, we do what we can. Interestingly though, as soon as things switched into a star year, and I started to switch my mindset about, okay, the objective of this work, of this spell, is to bring prosperity. What is actually the feeling that prosperity is supposed to give me, rather than how I think of a higher number in the bank bringing me comfort? Because in late stage capitalism, having money that can pay for things at the very least keeps you materially safe. But it's not to be taken for granted that will give you comfort or security. And I think that is a very important distinction that I hadn't necessarily made. It's hard to get out of a sort of scarcity mindset, and that was actually the scarcity mindset. You know how people in the fluffy bunnies area of witchcraft will go, oh no, you need to think yourself rich. It's not exactly that. I think the scarcity mindset is not understanding what actually makes you comfortable beyond rightfully the anxiety that it gives you to not have enough money to pay the bills to do that. We could be here and argue what money is in this day and age with the fact that it's just numbers on screens and we very rarely see cash anymore, and cash used to be the representation of money, of gold. We can go back and discuss the commutation and what actually brought money to be exchanged for goods rather than just exchanging goods. But I've already talked about that in the video about the opposite of capitalism and actually when money was introduced for everyone, which is not in antique Rome or whatever. It's usually in the Middle Ages. Before that, we used to still exchange goods and products of value. Which, funny story, my village still does. You very rarely, unless you go to the shop paying money, you go to people and you bring them things. I give you 6 eggs and you give me a dead chicken that I will cook tonight. It's something that always happened every time that we went to someone's house in my village. But I didn't think about it until I read Caliban and the Witch. So yeah, this thing of exchange of value and that money had to become more and more abstract to represent being safe and having things. I think that's where we kind of lost the understanding of what am I actually trying to make happen here. Because the number on the screen, as much as that's how we access bank accounts, means nothing to the universe, rightfully. So what personally has started to work for me is to think in material terms of, if I have that safety, what does that mean? It means that I can go for a week to a cottage with my spouse and we can go hike and be comfortable and not thinking about having to do stuff, having to, in my case, like, I don't know, prepare trainings for intersectionality and stuff like that. I don't have to think about those things because I'm just taking a holiday. We can just be comfortable sitting on our sofa without the pressure of having to look at emails because we're just talking to each other, and that's fine. Which then actually, when I look in practical terms, I realize that my life is already more prosperous than one would think for someone with my marginalization and in my position in the system, which I think is interesting. Like, it's worth self-reflecting of what do we want on top of what we have. I don't know if this applies to my siblings in the US, though, considering how late-stage capitalism makes them depend on money for everything, including health. So I am not trying to minimize how things go there. And I think that, yeah, having the idea of going out, being healthy, would be how I would materialize the idea of I have enough money to pay for health and to pay for these things. Therefore, I am healthy and jumping around and riding my bike, sun in my face, wind in my hair. It's that kind of thing. Does it make sense? I hope it makes sense. Yeah, something that I keep going back to it. I spoke about it recently again. The spell that I did last year that you actually have on this channel is the only one that I actually shared beginning to end. And it was a prosperity spell, prosperity and success. It was done with the sun in Aries, so the sun was well dignified, because I really like all the electional astrology kind of thing. But on top of that, the point for the first time was to envision prosperity not as money itself, but for how it would make me feel. And at the time, my idea of success, it might seem very silly, but especially back then, I was watching a lot of panels from things like Comic-Con of the actors of Baldur's Gate 3. And to me, it was really nice to hear how people would listen to them, regardless of the topic. Like, a lot of the actors, Sam Beart comes to mind, talk about experiences of life through the fact that they played that character, in a specific case, Carrasca. It was really fascinating to me. And then I think since I started to watch the live streams that are actually also posted on YouTube by Jennifer English and Aliona Branova, who are girlfriends. Aliona is one of the directors of Baldur's Gate, and Jennifer English plays Shadowheart. They are a beautifully lesbian couple goals. We love them, we ship them. And to me, it's absolutely fascinating when people listen to you because they know you for something, whatever. In the case of Jennifer, because of Shadowheart. But then the things that she talks about and Aliona talks about in their live streams are social, decent things that it's worth using a platform to talk to people so that if they never thought about it, they're thinking about it now. Which I think it's very important when you have a platform to use it to give people nuggets of ideas that then they can look into. And yes, once they heard about Agatha all along, they bought Sage. But then I immediately commented, hey, maybe you don't know that Sage is not ideal, but hey, there are so many other things that you can do. So it's the kind of thing. I think I understood through that having the platform is what allows you to do good, to give people ideas, to then look into things themselves. And as you know from here, the reason why I do what I do and I share things from my life, from my studies, ultimately is because my target audience is myself when I was 12. It took me a very, very long time to understand how the world worked and to see through the veil of all the issues and marginalization that I was living through that weren't all necessarily my fault, but up until well into my 20s, to me, the system had absolutely convinced me, it's on me, it's my fault that people don't like me, it's my fault that people treat me this way, I just need to do more and do better. Yeah, girl, way to get burnt out. But that was genuinely my good intention without understanding the world because I didn't have the knowledge. So when I started to acquire the knowledge, the most important thing for me was to share it with other people, because if by any chance this reaches someone that had my good intention but my ignorance, hopefully it will make you less ignorant and more knowledgeable and able to change the world sooner than I could. That's why I do everything. That's the foundation, that's the meaning of life for me. There you go. So, going back to how do we troubleshoot spells? Sorry, that was a tangent. To me, understanding that, what feels like comfort to me, what I wish to do, is being able to speak to people, to explain the world to people, to give people tools to better their life and the world, and possibly have that be my job, so have that be what helps me pay the rent and the bills. And I don't expect to be a billionaire. Like, I do not understand asking for money that you don't need and you don't use. Like, I'm okay getting to the end of the month and having finished what I get in welfare and what I make in tarot readings, and then there's also, again, the tarot readings, the donation that goes to Kuchos to Gaza. I wouldn't necessarily aim to have much more than that. If I were, I imagine that then it would be the next step of, okay, we're safe enough and healthy enough, then the next step is maybe owning our house. I can't imagine that. So that spell work still needs work in my head. But that's what I'm trying to get at. I try to be very realistic, but the sense of security, because I rely on things that I cannot necessarily control, then those things I try to apply my spells to. And so when I did the spell about prosperity and success, my idea was like, let me be on this stage where I'm asked questions that I can answer and maybe give something to people. And then by the end of it, I'm paid and I can go back home and cook a nice meal to my spouse, more likely the other way around, but I can buy the food without having to count pennies and then they cook me a nice meal. It's an exchange this way. It's the idea of having that comfort that is not the constant anxiety of having to check how much do I have left. Can I buy this food, or do I need to wait until, welfare pays again or stuff like that. So it's that kind of thing. And it might not seem much, and some people, I'm sure, will criticize me, oh, you don't have enough of a prosperity and abundance mindset. I don't believe in abundance for the sake of it. I believe in safety. So I personally found that for me, it's much easier to focus my energy on that sense of safety and where does it come from, rather than being surrounded by gold. Because again, the piece of gold itself, it doesn't, what is it? What does it mean? What does it represent? We are missing the point that the money that is the number in the bank now used to be cash. The cash used to be a stand-in for gold. The gold used to be a stand-in for actual material things that we need. And the gold per se, we don't need. So that's my take. Let me know, what is your take about your spells, your idea of prosperity, and how have you troubleshoot so far with your spells? I personally found that, having this understanding and this focus really helped with my spells. Let me know how it works for you. And until the next video, I really hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there's need for it.